Hey friends, it's Miss A at the Northeast branch of the Reading Public Library, and this week I have a few spooky book recommendations for you in this week's Reader's Advisory. So I'm going to start with kids books, then I'm going to go to middle grade, and then to teen. So that's what we're covering today. You might want to skip ahead if you don't care about children's books, but honestly, as an older person, I still love even the picture books, so I recommend you listen to the whole thing. So first, I will start with board books. The first one I have to recommend is Where is Baby's Pumpkin? So this is a simple book. It's good for getting children, very young children, interested in the story and engaged. There are things to move around and lots of things to guess. So we basically move around with Baby in his Halloween costume as he tries to find his pumpkin to celebrate Halloween. Another very cute board book that we have is Ghosts in the House. So this is a cute little haunted house story. Not scary, but very cute. I love the illustrations. If you're looking for something spooky but not scary for your little tot, highly recommend this one. It just shows the ghost as all different things, and it's really cute with all of these black, orange, and white illustrations. The last board book I have to recommend is B is for Boo by Greg Pabrocki, and it's a Halloween alphabet. So if you're trying to go over letters with your kid, this is a great book. And even if you're not trying to teach the alphabet, I love the illustrations in this book. So they have a different Halloween thing for every letter of the alphabet. So A is for apple. There's a really cute illustration of bobbing for apples. B is for Boo. We have a cute ghost. The illustrations are just really cute. I love the art in this book. Now on to picture and easy books. So these are for slightly older children or anyone who just enjoys a good picture book like myself. So the first one I have to recommend is A Werewolf Named Oliver James by Nicholas John Frith. So this one is super cute. Just look at the illustrations. It's about a boy named Oliver James who is a werewolf all of a sudden. It's funny, it's cute, it's a little bit spooky. If your kid likes werewolves, or if you just love great illustrations and a nice friendly story, highly recommend this one. If you're looking at our next story time, it is called A Creepy Pair of Underwear, and this is sort of the predecessor to that book, and it is called Creepy Carrots by Aaron Reynolds and with drawings by Peter Brown. So it follows a little rabbit named Jasper who is very afraid of creepy carrots. It's super funny. The illustrations are very cute, and it's a little spooky and scary, but not too scary. It's not going to give any kids nightmares. Instead, the spooky carrots are very funny looking, as you can see here. Another recommendation I have is Pumpkin Eye by Denise Fleming. I basically feel like this one's sort of a classic. If you're looking for pumpkin books, this one's great, but it sort of follows Halloween night. It's very spooky. And it has some fun little phrases. It's nice to read and play around with little kids. Another great one for the little ones is Go to Sleep, Little Creep by David Quinn with illustrations by Ashley Spires. So this is a great bedtime story for the month of October, or anytime you want a little silly spooky story. It's basically about mama monsters trying to get their baby monsters to go to bed. I think there's some good daddy monsters too. But yeah, the pictures are very cute. We have zombies, we have some sort of cyclops monsters, vampires, all sorts of baby monsters trying to go to bed. So this is a really cute bedtime story for October. One that I love is The Dark by Lemony Snicket, illustrated by John Klassen. So very famous author-illustrator combo here, and this is more of a slightly scary story, but with sort of a positive message. So the main boy, Laszlo, is afraid of the dark, but by the end, he learns that the dark's not all bad. It's sort of a book about facing your fears, But the illustrations are just gorgeous and has a very creepy vibe to it. This one's probably better for slightly older children. The younger ones might find it a little hard to follow. There are more words, but it's a great story. Good for your elementary schoolers. Now, if I had to pick a picture book that has my favorite pictures of all of the ones I'm talking about today, it would be Pick a Pumpkin by Patricia Tott, illustrated by Jarvis. So as you can see, it is just gorgeous. There's gold foil on the cover. It has this wonderful Halloween palette of purples and oranges and greens and blacks, and it's just fabulous looking. And it follows all the way from picking a pumpkin at the pumpkin patch to carving it out, making trees for Halloween, and it ends with a celebration. It's really cute, very festive, and as you can see, the illustrations are just fantastic. And I'd say that the whole family can enjoy this one. I mean, look how cute that is. Love this one. The last picture book I have to talk about is Jampires by Sarah McIntyre and David O'Connell. So this is another book that's great if you want spooky but not scary. Instead, it's quite funny. Instead of vampires that drink blood, we have jampires who eat jam. So this is a really silly one, and this is better for slightly older children again because the words, there are more of them. So it's an easy book, not a picture book. But it's a fun adventure, very silly. And if you don't want something scary but just a little spooky, Jampires is a great book for you and your family. Alright, so next is my middle grade section. So even though these are for middle grade readers, I love all of these books. So if you are a teen, if you're a young adult, if you are 75, I still really recommend these books. I think they're all wonderful and nice and spooky for this time of year. So first I have two graphic novels. The first one is Anya's Ghost by Vera Brosgol. I love this book. So we follow Anya, and she's, I think, Russian American, and she has trouble fitting in at her school. She doesn't have a great time, but then all of a sudden she meets a ghost at the bottom of a well who at first seems like she's going to improve her life, but slowly starts taking over and bad things start happening. So this is a great spooky book. At times it's a little bit scary. There's some good mystery with who the ghost is. And it's really great about being culturally inclusive and diverse. And I love this one. I think it's a great read. We did it as our graphic novel book club, I think about 2 years ago, and I think everyone really enjoyed it. So highly recommend. The other graphic novel I have to recommend is The Witch Boy by Molly Knox Ostertag. And this is actually the first book in a series. I think there are 3 so far, and they are fantastic. I love these. The illustrations are really cool, but basically it's about our main character, Aster, and he is part of a family where traditionally all of the women are witches and all of the men are shapeshifters. But Aster feels from a young age that he is really a witch and not a shapeshifter. He has no interest in shapeshifting, he can't do it, but he's talented at magic even though his family tries to force him not to do it and tries to disallow him. And so on the surface it's already fantastic. I love the sort of background of the family, the way the magic is done. All of the books in this series have a really great storyline to them. I think the series continues to be great as it goes on. But I mean, it's also really great if you're just trying to find a good book for talking about LGBT youth. I mean, this has a great plot line of at first his family not understanding who he is, and eventually they go around to accept him and who he is and who he knows he is inside. So I highly recommend this one. Now I'm going into the novels, and the first one on my list is Elizabeth and Zenobia by Jessica Miller. So this is a really creepy story Elizabeth is in a creepy old house and makes a friend called Zenobia, who is a spirit living inside the house. It's very creepy. Let's see if I can read the blurb. Oh yeah, so it says, Elizabeth Murmur is not sure about her new home, Withering House, the creepy old mansion where her father grew up. For a timid girl, the dark, empty rooms seem full of menace. But Elizabeth has a very unusual companion, Zenobia, who never leaves her side and who isn't afraid of anything. Soon, fearless Zenobia is leading the two in expeditions and seances, determined to summon the dead. And her efforts do stir something, for Withering House holds secrets. Secrets it is reluctant to give up. I don't want to give too much away, but if you like Victorian settings, if you like haunted house stories, I would highly recommend this one. It wasn't maybe scary, it's not going to give you nightmares, but it's very creepy and suspenseful and a great read. I read it in one sitting, I loved it, and I highly recommend. My next two books are both by Neil Gaiman. So I have Coraline and The Graveyard Book. Both are books that I love. I'll go over Coraline first. You might have seen the movie before. The movie is great as well. Basically, it's about a girl named Coraline whose family moves into a new house. Her parents are ignoring her. She hates it there, but she finds a little door that leads to another version of her house and her other mother, who is everything she would want her mother to be. The world is fantastical, it's exciting, but she soon learns that this world is not all it's cracked up to be. It's very dark. Her other mother has dark intentions, and it is at times a little bit scary. It's very creative, and I just think he's made a great and interesting world. And it's another sort of haunted house story if you like that sort of thing. The other book is The Graveyard Book. And it also has illustrations in this copy by Dave McKean. This is a great one. It's about a boy named Bod who, as a child, his family was murdered and he only escaped because he happened to be running out to the graveyard, and he grows up inside of the graveyard with sort of ghosts as his family, while also being hunted down by the person who murdered his parents. It's very interesting, it's very suspenseful, it's a little bit sad at times, but also has Neil Gaiman's typical sort of humor and wit, so highly recommend this one. The last book I have to recommend for our middle grade category is probably my favorite one of the middle grade books, if not all of the books I'm talking about. And this one is A Monster Calls, a novel by Patrick Ness, inspired by an idea by Siobhan Dowd. So this book is amazing. This copy also has pretty illustrations. We own this copy. I highly recommend checking this one out. But either way, it's a great story. So basically, what's the main character's name? Oh yeah. So Connor has a mother who is suffering from cancer. And he's basically waiting for something terrible to happen. And as he's having these miserable thoughts, having a miserable time, a monster appears in his garden, a giant monster, and it keeps asking him the truth. It wants to find out the truth, as it says. This monster is something different, something ancient, something wild, and it wants the most dangerous thing of all from Connor. It wants the truth. So it's sort of a spooky story, but it's also about loss and grief. I sobbed like a baby. It's a very sad story, but really moving, beautifully written, and it's a very short read, so I really recommend this one. I cannot praise this book enough. I will probably reread this sometime this month, so highly, highly, highly recommend. Okay, so now I'm finally going to get to our teen books. So first I have two graphic novels. The first one is Pumpkinheads by Rainbow Rowell, and with illustrations by Faith Erin Hicks. Yeah, I love this one. It is really cute. If you want something that just screams fall, Pumpkinheads is for you. There is no book more festive for fall than Pumpkinheads. I mean, just look at the end papers. Yeah, so Josie and Deja both work together at a pumpkin patch, but this is their last year working there together. And it's sort of a romance story. They're eagerly trying to find someone at the pumpkin patch before the end of the night, since it's their last night working there. It's sort of a friendship, romance. You see all parts of the pumpkin patch. The illustrations are just so cute. I mean, this is amazing for fall. Look, there are scarecrows, pumpkins, corn mazes. It's really funny. It's just cute. If you want something really lighthearted instead of scary and spooky, this is for you. It doesn't get much more lighthearted and cutesy than Pumpkinheads. If a spooky graphic novel is more your speed, then I recommend Through the Woods with Stories by Emily Carroll. So this is a collection of a couple different short graphic novel stories. They're all sort of spooky or ghost stories. Some of them I think are it's scarier than others, but the storytelling is cool. I really like the art style. It gets nice and creepy at times. Maybe don't read this one right before bed like I did, but if you want some creepy stories and some beautiful art to get you feeling inspired for Halloween, I would recommend this one. Now on to the novels. So I have to start with 2 books by the author Libba Bray, and both of these are the first books in a series. So if you're looking for a spooky-ish series to read for October around Halloween or anytime, I would recommend these 2. So the first is A Great and Terrible Beauty. This is the first book in a series of 4 books. This one's one of her older series. I read it when I was a teen to start out with, but I was obsessed. I have read this series many times and it is fantastic. So basically our main character, I believe her name is Gemma. Yeah. So Gemma is sent away to a Victorian boarding school for girls of breeding after her mother either disappears or dies when they're living in India. And when she's there, she discovers that several girls at the school are in possession of magic and sort of access to another sort of world. While she's there, she finds dark secrets about the school, about her mother and her family, and about herself. And it is just a fantastic story. They're all quick reads, very addictive, has a very dark feel to it. If you love Victorian stories and fantasy, you will love this book and this whole series. I thought it was great. The books just get better and better. So I highly recommend this one. The other series is The Diviners. So this story takes place in the 1920s, 1930s, somewhere around there. And it is basically about Evie. Let me read this. Evie O'Neill has been exiled from her boring old hometown and shipped off to the bustling streets of New York City, and she is positively ecstatic. It is 1926, and New York is filled with speakeasy, Ziegfeld girls, and rakish pickpockets. The only catch is that she has to live with her Uncle Will and his unhealthy obsession with the occult. Evie wonders that he'll discover her darkest secret, a supernatural power that has only brought her trouble so far. But when the police find a murdered girl branded with a cryptic symbol and Will is called to the scene, Evie realizes her gift could help catch a serial killer. As Evie jumps headlong into a dance with a murderer, other stories unfold in the city that never sleeps. A young man named Memphis is caught between 2 worlds. A chorus girl named Theta is running from her past. A student named Jericho hides a shocking secret. And unknown to all, something dark and evil has awakened. So the Diviners are basically a group of young adults, older teens, living in the 1920s in New York City who all have some sort of secret special power, and together they work to sort of untangle these different mysteries in New York City, while Evie also works at her uncle's museum for the occult. So it has a very dark, sort of mysterious setting, also set in the Roaring 20s. So if you like that era, you will probably love this series. Yeah, I don't know what else to say about that. It's great series, great book. Check it out. The next book I have is Cemetery Boys by Aidan Thomas. So this book follows Yadriel, who is a Latinx trans man, and his family refuses to give him the sort of ceremony or rite to become a brujo. So instead, he finds a way to do it himself. Shortly afterwards, his cousin is, I forget if he's either murdered or disappears, but he goes to unravel the mystery. In the meantime, he falls in love with the spirit of a man who he resurrected or something like that. But yeah, it's a great LGBTQ plus love story. It's very spooky. This is a great one. It is just fantastic. Highly recommend. And even though it's sort of spooky and creepy, it also gives you really good feels. So recommend. And if you want something that gives you very sad, dark feels instead, I recommend The Lie Tree by Frances Hardinge. I read this one last year and I liked it a lot. I love plants, so I really liked sort of the spooky feel of all these plants in this book. So basically it follows Faith Sunderly. There's like a mysterious tree that's growing, and the idea is that the tree will have a fruit that like tells you the truth. So sort of playing off of the tree of knowledge. It's very suspenseful scary, not like pop out ghost monster scary, but yeah, just very suspenseful, dark. If you like books about sort of Victorian botanists, I know that's a bit niche, but I like it. I mean, I thought it was great. It wasn't like many books I'd read, and I just don't want to spoil too much, but I highly recommend this one. Very spooky. Oh, actually, let me read the blurb. The blurb is good too. So the blurb says, "To earn a secret so profound, I would need to tell momentous lies and make as many people as possible believe them." And then it goes on, "Faith Sunderly leads a double life. To most people, she is modest and well-mannered, a proper young lady who knows her place. But inside, Faith is burning with questions and curiosity. She keeps sharp watch of her surroundings and therefore knows secrets no one suspects her of knowing. Like the real reason her family fled Kent to the close-knit Isle of Vain, and that her father's death was no accident. In pursuit of revenge and justice for the father she idolizes, Faith hunts through his possessions, where she discovers a strange tree. A tree that bears fruit only when she whispers a lie to it. The fruit, in turn, delivers a hidden truth. The tree might hold the key to her father's murder, or it might lure the murderer directly to Faith herself, for lies, like fires, wild and crackling, quickly take on a life of their own." So yeah, this book was very suspenseful, spooky. I like that the main character is allowed to make a lot of mistakes. There's a lot of suspense, twists and turns based on the things she sort of cooks up, talking to this tree to try to uncover her father's murder. So it was just really interesting. I really loved this one a lot. Take a look at it. The last book I have to recommend, there is a good chance you've heard of it, maybe you've read it already. This one's good for some more advanced middle grade readers as well, but it is the first book of the series, Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children. I think there are 4 or 5 of these now, but basically it follows a boy who, after his grandfather either dies or disappears, he discovers a home for peculiar children, which is basically a frozen moment or like place in time where all of these children with different sort of odd powers live together. And one thing that makes these books really interesting is that the author, Ransom Riggs, incorporates all of these old found photos. So he uses these photos to sort of inspire his story and includes them along the way instead of like illustrations. And they're just really cool. The stories are very sort of strange. He also has a book out called, I think, Tales of the Peculiar, which is sort of short stories, sort of to seem like traditional folk tales based on the world of these peculiars. And yeah, I mean, I think they're spooky, they're quick reads, and they're fun. They're a little suspenseful without being scary, so I recommend these if you want something a little bit weird and fun and quirky. So that's all I have for this week's Reader's Advisory. I hope you pick up one of these spooky reads at one of our RPL locations or somewhere at another Berks County Public Library. All the books I've talked about today are books that we do have in the library system. So place a hold online or come into one of our libraries to request one. Thanks and happy spooky season, everyone.